subscribe to see more of the
Oh my god, the sky is falling. The terrorists have taken over Burkina Faso.
Hi,
Ibrahim
wonderful
Traore is a
people.
failure.
Please subscribe
Everyone
to
is
see
dead and
more
we're
of Ibrahim
doomed.
Traore videos. Thank you.
Or at least that's how you're supposed to react to that video. Because, I mean, look at it. Terrorists marching through the center of a town in Burkina Faso. Same Burkina Faso with the red beret man who's supposed to be doing so well. And hold on, what's this? 2 stories within 2 days of each other reporting 2 other terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso where hundreds of people died. Quotes from analysts in each story saying the same thing. That Burkina Faso's military cannot protect its people and the countries of the Sahel Alliance need to go back to France with their tails between their legs. But hold on a second. Before you go away with a definite picture in your head, ask yourself this question. What are you actually looking at here? Let's start from the circumstances surrounding this sudden rash of terror attacks in Burkina Faso. So on May 9, Ibrahim Traore met Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Victory Day parade in Moscow. This was a few days after African soldier who shall remain nameless accused him of using Burkina Faso's gold to protect himself. In addition to meeting Putin and having a series of bilateral discussions, Traore also gave an interview to RT where he gave Emmanuel Macron and African soldier a public spanking. Interestingly, while this was happening, Mr. Macron was meeting in Paris with a former Al-Qaeda commander who once had a $10 million US government bounty on his head called Mohammed al-Jalani, who these days is Syria's head of state and is now known in French media as Ahmed al-Sharaa, because war is peace, slavery is freedom, ignorance is strength, and we have always been at war with East Asia. Shout out to Jojo. Next thing you know, Al-Qaeda's North African subsidiary. Turns out all 3 are either right next to Burkina Faso's troublesome northern border with Mali, or its southeastern border with Benin, which so happens to host a French military base just 50 kilometers from the border. So apparently these guys swooped in on their motorbikes, carried out a blitz attack, filmed it for maximum effect, and then disappeared. And incidentally, that matches the exact version of the story that the authorities in Ouagadougou have maintained for months. While US-based private intelligence organizations with links to Israeli intelligence claim that more than 1/3 of Burkina Faso is under the control of jihadists. The Burkinabe government insists that not only is this not the case, but that previously displaced people are actually returning home in numbers, as the army has regained control over most of the country's territory. So who's telling the truth? Well, you know what they say, men lie, women lie, but accurate and properly contextualized numbers don't. So let's look at the African Development Bank's numbers. According to the AFDB, the country's inflation rate fell off a cliff from 14.1% in 2022 to just 0.7% in 2023, driven primarily by improved food supplies. Think about that. In other words, after being driven away by insecurity prior to Ibrahim Traore's takeover, Burkinabe farmers have been able to return to their farms and road networks have been secured, permitting food supply to be so plentiful that inflation fell by 95% in just 1 year. The agricultural industry periodical, Milling Middle East and Africa, also estimates that Burkina Faso will achieve 111% of its cereal harvest needs this year. And while this is going on, there's also a quiet construction boom going on in Bobo Dioulasso, which recently opened a new 500-bed teaching hospital, and in Ouagadougou, where new shopping malls and residential buildings are going up. Does any of this strike you as the sign of a failed state without territorial sovereignty that is led by a pretender with no capacity? And that brings a message of doom that you are supposed to get when you see terrorists on motorbikes ripping down flags and carefully videotaping location signposts so that you know that they were there. And why? To answer that question, all you have to do is scroll to the bottom of these stories and check out who was quoted giving expert analysis of these events. So in the first story, you have someone named Beverly Ochieng, an apparent specialist in Sahelian affairs, who comes from the famous Sahelian city of Nairobi, Kenya, which is about 6,000 kilometers southeast of the Sahel. Her glittering qualifications for Sahelian geopolitical analysis and conflict reporting include hosting a podcast about poetry and literature, writing for a Kenyan news website, and knowing how to speak French. Experts. And with this glittering CV, who does she work for? Well, it's something called the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is an American think tank, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here's the interesting part. Funded by the American Defense Industry Avengers, Lockheed Martin, General Atomics, Northrop Grumman. So Beverly is essentially acting as the spokesperson of the same establishment that African Soldier comes from. Isn't that interesting? The other story quotes Conflict Armament Research for its expert analysis. So I wonder who these guys are. Let's see, check them out, see who's behind them, and funded by the European Union. The same European Union whose member state, France, believes that Burkina Faso without French domination is like Paris without its rats and constant smell of pee. And what this means is that both stories quoted biased and unreliable sources without disclosing the bias, and then presented these elaborate geopolitical opinion pieces as news. And that, unfortunately, is all too common in journalism. Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you manufacture a crisis and use it to achieve political objectives by peddling poison information which locks people into a reality that does not exist. Some call it public opinion management. Others call it mass mind control. Plus,